This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
Hey everybody, it's Aaron Norris here for our 600th show. 250 hours of real estate content. It's hard to believe we've been doing this for over 10 years. And today, celebrating our 600th show, is Andrea Van Soest. She's a flipper, realtor, and designer. And Andrea adds the design eye to the husband-wife team at So Cal Homebuyers, which she co-owns and runs with her husband, Doug, who's been on the show for the last couple of weeks, talking about their journey getting started in entrepreneurship and how they went from kettle corn to flipping. Today, we're exclusively chatting. We're here to talk about design and style. Andrea studied interior design at UCLA and UC Riverside and has a background in industrial organizational psychology. She and her husband have flipped hundreds of properties, and they also buy rentals. So, Andrea, thank you for joining us for our 600 show.
Thank you for having me. What a cool show to be on.
Well, I made a joke on the last show I wanted to do. I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly, but I'm glad it did back to back. This was a lot of fun. I wanted to do a show on how HGTV ruined my flip. I grew up in the 80s doing flips with my dad, and I can still see the color palette or the lack thereof on all the things that we used to do together. All white walls. There was no two-tone. Outside was a white with a medium blue trim. Didn't matter what style it was. I just knew what was going to be there. And then same carpet and linoleum. Every house, there was a formula. So I guess let's start on a scale from 1 to 10, how important is design in today's market, in your opinion?
In my opinion, oh gosh, for me it's important, but I love it. So I would say maybe a 7.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and has it changed over the past decade, in your opinion?
Yeah, I do think it has changed. It kind of goes with the cycle. There's times where you don't need to do as much; it's not as important. And there's times where you need to do a little bit more, I think, to get the value that you're hoping for. But today, with HGTV and all the things you kind of mentioned, the buyers are really educated. They're more sophisticated. They know all these different styles that are out there. And so I think it's kind of important to appeal to that. Yeah.
And I agree. It's I was interviewing on the radio show about a month ago the shared housing creator Common, and it's not shelter anymore. It's a lifestyle. So I follow your work on Instagram. I'm like, is she using Instagram as Pinterest, or is this her work? I mean, it's not only beautiful, the photos are beautiful, and you just have such a great eye. So let's start there. Like, why design? How did you fall into the interior design focus?
I have loved design for as long as I can remember. I've always had a really strong appreciation for just a well-assembled space. I think it was maybe 5th grade when I started asking for decor items for my bedroom on my Christmas wish list. So it's just something I've always loved.
Really?
And
like, what did you? 6th grade? What were you asking for?
You know what? It's so silly, but DJ Tanner's bedroom on Full House, I thought it was so cool, and I wanted all the things that she had in my room. That's kind of my first memory of being really tuned into how a space could feel and all the interesting elements you could add. And yeah.
Okay.
DJ Tanner. But I went to college, and the college that I chose didn't have design as a major, so I just kind of picked something else, to be honest.
Okay.
And then Doug and I went on our entrepreneurial journey that he talked about last week. And really, I think a big part of the allure to me for getting into real estate investing and house flipping was that design side. It was kind of an opportunity for me to sort of flex that creativity that I've always been wanting to use. And then a few years into that, it kind of afforded me the opportunity to go back to school and start taking the classes. I kind of always felt like I had an eye for those things, but I really wanted to know all the technical skills behind it as well. So at that point, I went back and learned all about drafting and AutoCAD and space planning and history of architecture and all of those things that I think kind of helped round it all out.
Oh, wow. So you've even done AutoCAD.
Yeah, I can draw our plans if I need to. So that's been really fun.
Interesting. Now, when it came to your flips, I know watching my brother sort of the formula he did, he basically had 4 or 5 different templates depending on the house. It made it easy for the contractors that we were working with, like, okay, here's the palette for this house. It was, it was definitely elevated a lot from what we had been doing in the 80s, but it matched the style of the house. It felt very appropriate. We weren't putting in shiplap in a like a really modern
Right.
Palm Springs home. Was there somebody somewhere during the last cycle where you felt design really sort of needed to push the edge when it was more of like a buyer's or seller's market? Did that switch happen for you guys?
Yeah, I do feel like there's been times where you can basically clean it up and put it out there and it doesn't really matter. And then there's times where it really does matter. If you don't want yours to fit, you want it to stand out. We have also had those kind of templated formulaic design methods as well. And to be honest, we still do that a little bit today too. But there's just those certain properties that feel unique and special. And I think the more that I've learned about design and the more I kind of care about it, I'm sort of choosing to make some of our projects more special now. It's kind of a choice just because I love it.
Some of your stuff is so stunning. It looks like it belongs in a magazine. You clearly have a great eye. When I lived out in New York City, I worked for a mid-century antique store, and I fell in love with design as well. And I got introduced to a lot of furniture, art glass, lighting. I was fascinated. I just had no idea it could get so expensive as well. And then working in downtown LA in construction, doing high-end architectural lighting design. So there's so many different layers that you can put on. And I think what's interesting is that you guys are best known for working in the Inland Empire. So sort of flipping the script of like, it's the mid-range or it's a lower first-time buyer. I think that even makes it more special, especially since some buyers are coming into housing now planning on living there a lot longer than they may have, once upon a time. So what's been the reaction to buyers that go into, these first-time buyer neighborhoods that you guys are working in, and they're like, you're putting something out there they're not expecting?
Yeah, the reaction has been unbelievable and a good financial payoff as well. So, for example, we recently did a home in Lake Elsinore in a neighborhood that you would not ever feel like you need to be upgraded in that particular area. And so I just decided to choose one room and make it feel kind of special, which was the kitchen. And it's pretty small, so honestly, it didn't cost a whole lot extra, just a little bit of extra thought and detail and time on my part. We got offers $30,000 over our asking price, and maybe I spent $500 more than I would have.
Get out of here.
So, yeah. So, it can have a substantial impact.
Wow, that was actually going to be my next question. Does it have to cost a lot of more, especially for investors who typically lean towards the first-time buyer end of the market in this cycle? That's fascinating. $500.
Yeah, I think lighting can go a long way. There's so many things available now that look great and don't cost as much as you might think. So I think lighting can go a long way, using some tile that looks a little bit more custom in some strategic places where you're not spending a whole lot on it. And then some good staging goes a long, long way. Maybe some good hardware. I think I did an upgraded faucet, and all those little elements didn't really cost me a whole lot more, but when people walked in there, they just felt like they connected to that space and they wanted to live there. We had multiple offers all over asking price. That's
fantastic. And you really sort of think it was the edge because the kitchen was so special?
I do. Maybe just because I really liked it, but no, I do. That whole house turned out really cute. But, when people are going around looking at maybe, 10, 12 homes, if you can do something unique and special that feels just cohesive and different from other properties, I think it stands out in their mind and kind of justifies a reason for them to maybe pay a little bit more.
That's so cool. Is there, when you find a house, do you approach it that way? You're like, what can I do special? And how do you choose which room to focus on?
It depends house to house. Typically, I'll focus on either the kitchen or maybe a master bathroom, depending on what's there. Yeah. I do typically, like I said, sometimes we have a formula, but for the ones that I choose to kind of go a little bit above and beyond, It just kind of depends what's there and what I can work with. Sometimes if you can leave an element of character that was originally there, it just adds kind of an interesting special feel. That's what I actually did in that Lake Elsinore house. We left the pantry in the original wood finish that it was, and then we put brand new cabinets surrounding it, and it just made it feel brand new, but also like it had this rich character to it as well. And so, yeah, I think each one kind of needs its own unique approach to do it that way.
I love that I just love history, and having lived in very old parts of New York, it was fun to live in places that have been there for over 100 years. There's definitely a piece of that. So I laugh because I think I know what kitchen you're talking about, because I stalk you on Instagram, and it was sort of it was the yellowish finish, right, on the pantry in the kitchen. Am I thinking of the right picture?
It was like a wood. It was like a medium wood finish on the pantry.
Okay, I think I know which one you're talking about. So, and that's always dangerous, because as soon as you start, I mean, I did this. The last flip I did, I spent double. That's why I'm a buy hold guy. I always overspend, because I'm like, okay, we'll put in new windows. Okay, we'll scrape the popcorn ceilings, even though just throw glitter on it. It's coming back, I swear. But as soon as you start down the path, there's always a fear that it's going to be like, oh, now I have to replace that. Did you do anything to that pantry? Did you just clean it up? Did you refinish it?
I think we just cleaned it up and maybe put like I think we've touched up the stain in some areas just to make it feel not like the lesson of the old thing, to feel kind of purposeful and repolished in that space. But yeah, I think you can, some people do tend to want to go overboard, and I think it's okay to leave people a project to do. If there's an area of the house that's kind of special, maybe you don't do a whole lot in the backyard, so you're kind of compensating for your spending in the other area.
Interesting. Now, for $500, and so you said was it mainly tile and lighting that you said that you did in the kitchen that was special, maybe some hardware?
Yeah, I did a really cool light fixture that kind of hung above the sink that was different and unexpected, maybe from what you would see in a lot of flip properties. And then a backsplash that just felt a little bit unique. It was a small kitchen, so it didn't require a whole lot. But there's great sources for that stuff now that's not, the big box stores, where you can find different unique things for a price that fits an investor budget, really.
Where are you sourcing that stuff? Where do you even find that stuff?
The Floor and Decor, I love. They have a huge selection for really good prices.
Oh.
I love Wayfair, to be honest. Are you familiar with Wayfair?
We need to talk, because we have a discount as part of our subscription. Like, we get designer prices, but you're a designer, so you probably get the discount on that.
I do, but they're pretty generous. So I think if you are a flipper or buying in any kind of quantity, they're going to give you that professional discount, is what they call it. Mm-hmm. But that is such a great place to find unique and interesting vanities, lighting. It's kind of all the things that used to be only to the trade for designers. Mm-hmm. Now everybody sort of has access to that through Wayfair.
Yeah, I've furnished entire apartments with Wayfair, like couches. Yeah. I've been surprised that I've been able to find. Not all of it's the greatest quality, but for staging some of the stuff that I've been able to get, it's been awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
And they deliver it to you, so that's even better.
Yes. I've been so impressed with their delivery and their return policy, and I have nothing but good things to say about Wayfair.
What are the biggest mistakes you see investors make?
With regard to design, probably just going into maybe a Lowe's or a Home Depot and choosing all the pretty things and throwing them up there without a plan, where it looks like Roth and Allen kind of exploded into that property. So basically not having a plan. Yeah,
I would agree. That's why templates are so easy, because you know what you like, it looks good.
Right.
But I like the approach to, you can still do the big box items that are fairly standard, and it's going to look good, and take a chance on something like a backsplash or our fixtures. Just, I don't know if I'd always trust myself to do something very, very special. Are there any finishes that you've been liking lately that you think are unique? Is like gold coming back? And
yeah, I think gold and brass have been back for a little while now, and I love how that looks, especially against the grays and whites. It adds just a really pretty kind of fun pop of color and interest. I really like matte black. It's a little bit kind of industrial, sort of modern look. And then, of course, the chrome and the silver finishes, I don't think those really have ever gone out, but the black and the gold I think are really fun right now.
Well, black is even, you mean as far as even appliances are concerned?
Well, I've mostly used it for faucets and hardware finishes.
Oh, okay. The what are they, the like cast? No, that's not matte black. Is it? It's not rubbed bronze or anything. There's like a matte black.
Yeah, there's a matte black. It's really cool. And actually, I source a lot of faucets on Amazon. Some lighting on Amazon too. Yeah, so it's unbelievable what you can find online these days. It shows up right to your door and makes it really easy to create a space that looks like so much thought went into it.
So you love this so much, you've actually launched your own little design firm, right?
Yeah, I when I finished design school, I felt like that was important and it was the next step that I needed to kind of take. And what I've sort of realized is that I love doing our own projects. And I am taking on some client work sort of selectively based, on project or people. But I feel very fortunate to get to do our own projects. It's been so fun. We're getting into some vacation rentals, which I think our style of renovation is really conducive to that. It needs to feel a little bit elevated. It needs to feel special and unique. People want an experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
really
a great
idea.
that. I could see how that would be awesome. Where are you guys doing vacation rentals?
We're doing one up in the mountains in Idlewild,
Mm-hmm.
and we're doing one in Old Town Marietta, actually, and then another one that's going to be coming up in Joshua Tree.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm really excited to see how these turn out for us. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, the last vacation I did in Palm Springs, they tried, but I was amused because it was probably a $750,000 house, and they had gone in and just painted the master bathroom like as in the tile in the shower. It was strange.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's a difference, and you want to have like a really positive experience. So, have you been doing more owner occupied kind of design when you do, or have you been working more with investors?
A little bit of both. I've done some work for investors, kind of helping them to choose their template, basically, or create a template for them, and then to homeowners as well. So I just feel really comfortable with the whole renovation thing, since we've done that a lot. So I've honestly, through Instagram, I don't even really market myself for design. People have found me kind of through Instagram. I've been doing kitchen and bathroom renovations for people here and there, kind of as I have the time to do it.
Doug mentioned that you're so popular that you've had manufacturers say, "Hey, if you use our stuff, is this true? Are you a sponsored brand now?"
No, not technically a sponsored brand, but I have gotten some things for free in exchange for their use of the photos and that sort of thing. So that's cool. It does help elevate the project for sure.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Hey, and free is the right price.
Right, exactly.
Do you like working with investors more or an owner occupant?
Each have their own positives. A lot of times with an investor, they don't really care. They just want it to look great and they really trust you, and that's nice and convenient. But with a homeowner, there's more of a collaboration because they do know what they want. And so you kind of have to work through that and kind of earn their trust with regards to what you're suggesting. But then I think something really cool can come out of that, this kind of collaboration between what I'm suggesting and what they're really wanting. And sometimes it turns into this really interesting, unique thing that I wouldn't have thought it was going to go there from the beginning, So I think each has its own unique and interesting thing about it.
When it comes to design, I definitely have an aesthetic. So I know I would have a hard time working with somebody who, had something so far different. It's hard to sort of layer on your aesthetic onto somebody else. So when you approach a project, I mean, how do you even do that?
Well, that's the great thing about Instagram is that I feel like people find me because they like the style that I'm putting out there. And so I honestly don't so if somebody comes to me wanting like a Tuscan vibe, I just politely let them know that I'm not your girl, but I'll happily refer you to somebody else, So, I do try to stick within the style that I want to put out there.
Interesting. Now, you guys haven't really got into adding square footage and stuff right now. You're just sort of doing what's there?
We are, yeah. We have had square footage in the past, but the amount of time that it adds and all the headaches for us, it just wasn't something that we really wanted to do. And we haven't really had projects that have come along that have necessarily needed that. So yeah, we're kind of just sticking with our sweet spot of fixing up what's there. We might change around the walls on the inside, and I think that's always a fun kind of creative way to, figure out a better layout. But yeah, we're not really adding square footage right now.
Yeah, it does take more time, and that was going to be one of the questions I had. Is that the last project I did, I was calling in favors, making neighbors mad because we were cutting tile at 8:00 at night. Especially the skilled labor piece, depending on how special you're trying to make it. Sometimes it's hard. Like contractors just, if it's a weird, I don't know, product that you're using or something they're not used to working with, but the stuff that you're focusing on isn't necessarily that difficult to install. It's just aesthetically different, right?
Right. Yeah, but you do sometimes have to convince the contractor. And I'm learning to not worry if they look at me sideways or funny when I tell them, hey, this is what we're going to do. Just because they haven't done that before doesn't mean that it's wrong or it's not going to look right. So that's why the drawings are important and AutoCAD's important to really kind of spell it out for them exactly what you're wanting. But yeah, sometimes they do kind of look at you funny, like, you want to do what? But
like,
if you have an idea and you trust it, you got to just tell them, yep, that's what we're doing. Even if they can't visualize it.
Give me an example. Like, when have you run into that?
Unless for the tile layout, I'm doing some just fun and kind of different things in Palm Springs right now that will be finished here in a few months, actually. They're kind of longer projects. But, yeah, I want to give them the tile layout, and it's meant to be interesting and different, and kind of get like are you sure? Yep, I'm sure.
Interesting. So. And they give you pushback. I've definitely had them do that, but it's usually about the popcorn ceilings. They're like, Aaron, take it down, please.
Right.
I'm like, why? Get out of here. So do you think you're going to continue, now that we're in a cycle of the market that's pretty hot and there's such low inventory, a lot of people are just like, oh, I don't need to go the extra mile, but it still seems like you really enjoy it and you think it's important. Do you see yourself continuing to do that?
Only for the projects that have like a specific or a unique style. There's just certain ones that kind of like speak to me, and I'm excited to do it as a project. And sometimes I'll have to like beg Doug not to sell it to a wholesaler because I really want to renovate that one. But yeah, I do feel like if the market's picking up and if there's low inventory, it's probably not as necessary. And we are doing a lot of just straight templated kinds of homes right now as well. But just certain ones, for me, it's fun, and I will continue to probably do those. It's funny because your dad asked Doug on the last interview, do you ever see yourself building? And I was listening in my car going like, yes, say yes. And he's like, maybe.
I hope you do.
I
was thinking that as I've seen your stuff, I'm like, man, they would create some beautiful stuff. And I'm sure you probably do this. You drive by your projects and you're proud of the work that you've produced. And there's something special about, 10 to 15 years later. I mean, I passed by houses Dad flipped 30 years ago, and I remember that experience in that house and how much we cleaned it up. And it's just pride. I guess that's the only word I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm not surprised. It went fast. We're out of time. If people wanted to check out your work, what's the best way they can find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Vantage Design Studio, or my website is vantagedesignstudio.com.
And I'll get, and since we've had you both on different shows, what I'm going to do on our website is split your profiles so you have different ones so we can highlight you specifically, and we'll post all your links up there.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Thanks, Andrea, so much for your time, and until next time.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Take care.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.